I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. I tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Please, Lord, forgive them. They try to hold back and chillin' like they ain't know it was written. Break every chain. Wanna free my people from mental prisons. The eyes on the sparrow, I know who narrow divisions. Hope is the boat that keep us afloat just as you envision. Faith to erase the pain from all of our people slain. Desperate for change, actions to back up your spoken name. When they throw dirt on us, we use it to play the game. When it rains, we go greater together, no matter the weather. Trust these dark days, we gonna get better. Know that love will be the light to guide all our endeavors. And even if the touch of rise, we'll ride it forever. Why? We are money, we'll fight for our lives, cause we're dying to live. Future is ours, the time is now. Black will be proud, we say it loud, we gave it a roar. There's so much more to give, we breaking down on the floor. These times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Never backing down for the cause. Trying to put our life on pause. We move in the image of God. No matter the hate that's spoken, our spirits remain unbroken. The environment says you can't count us out. We are the answer. From the youth to the elders, ain't what you can tell us. Style of brilliance of mind. Heart is bright as sunshine. Warrior spirits alive, so that we won't be denied. So vibration is high and the frequency so angelic, like. People come on. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up.
That might be better next time around. Yeah. Yeah. Rise up, family. You already know what time it is.
Do you know what time it is?
On a Monday night, it's Soundbytes International Radio. Black Conscious Acclaim.
One world is the end.
You already know, bring the conversation into our diasporic landscape to help heal and uplift our African community worldwide. Also, of course, I'm Hasidic Nefra, and this is
Nefra to my IT.
Yep. So tune in, family. Join the conversation. Share the broadcast. We're talking about. We're probably gonna make this a short broadcast tonight, but we'll see how it goes. We flew it up in here with our conversations.
Okay.
We're talking about voting today. You know what I mean? So we're talking about voting. Census is closed today, or today's the last day. I don't know if there's like a cutoff to like midnight or something. How does that work?
Midnight? What? No. The census?
Yeah.
It extended. It's out. It's out to 31st of October.
Oh, that's right. So what we're talking about. About?
It was, and they got it extended back to the 31st.
Okay, all right.
Because it was going to be over for the 5th.
Yeah.
Okay. But now it's officially extended back to the original date that it's supposed to be.
Oh, really? Ooh, so yeah, we're going to talk about all that, family. But again, join the conversation. Share the video link. First things first, obey your thirst. Follow us. Make sure you follow us on the usual channels. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Soundbytes International Radio. We get more Soundbytes content in the real deal Soundbytes Instagram format. So you get these conversations and so much more in depth. on our Instagram page. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Soundbytes International Radio, where we are also streaming live as well. We're currently streaming live on our Facebook, on our YouTube, and on our Twitter. And beyond on that, follow us on Twitter at Soundbytes INTL. And make sure also if you're a usual suspect, you're probably following us on our Facebook right now, which is also Soundbytes INTO Radio. So you can follow those formats, those platforms where you can get some Soundbytes content and see this broadcast streaming live, and also get the playback if you missed the live broadcast. Also remember to follow our podcast, audio versions of these broadcasts of the past 3 years or so since Soundbytes fruition on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. You can also visit our website. You should see it streaming across the bottom there. Streaming at the bottom of the screen. This is soundbytes.com, where you can hit those links to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. There's also a merch section where you can support the Soundbytes brand by rocking some gear. You get some nice gifts along with purchasing the merch. You can also contribute to Soundbytes and the further fruition, the further sustainability of this Black-owned independent operation right up here. So we put it all together. So the reciprocity and money yield of our people, the energy yield of our people, is greatly appreciated if you find value in what we bring to this platform each week, whether it be through the Soundbytes International Radio general broadcast or African in Business series, which we do tend to air on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as well. We would generally have a guest on speaking about what it means to be an African in business and how we can fortify our community from within, and no longer rely on the matrix for what's needed. So yeah, make sure you're tuning in to that and stay with us here on Soundbytes International Radio. Again, tonight, we're talking about voting. We got a lot of things going on. It's been a really, 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 really crazy year. And we're only in month 10. So we got a couple more months to go of 2020. I'm sure a lot of people are ready for it to go. And it's just been a lot of things, a lot of peeling back of the onion of societal ills that we've been indoctrinated to and be aloof about for so long. A lot of layers being peeled back on our social landscape, as far as racism and other discriminatory acts, our healthcare system, our judicial system for sure, the prison industrial complex. All these things have been exposed in great ways this year, and we would like putting two and two together. We like to believe that the whole situation with COVID and the pandemic and locking folks down, having people sit down for 2 seconds to kind of see what's going on around them, did attribute greatly to that. Because when nothing else, when people couldn't find anything else to do, they went out in the streets and protests, right? And one of the biggest, I believe, civil rights protests in history is went across the globe. People from here, in the U.S. to Italy and to Africa and to all these different, all like countries, various countries in Africa and all over the globe.
Right.
Protests rang out around the issue, the openly presented killing, murdering of one man, George Floyd, by the police. Also, police brutality was on a great display this year, as far as being a front and center thing that the globe got to really see in this land of the free, home of the brave. So while George Floyd was not an isolated incident, it was an incident that was very much put on Front Street for the world view, and it did raise a lot and peel back a lot for a lot of people, even though that may not have realized what the extent of white privilege looked like, what the extent of white supremacy looked like. Right? I feel like people have gotten a little bit more honest around what white supremacy looked like. By people, I mean white people that may have not had a more honest or more direct conversation about it in the past. Cognitive dissonance seems to be gradually breaking down, which I think is a beautiful thing for anyone to be aware of what's going on with your other peoples that you live with and coexist with. So there's a lot been going on, and of course, a lot of those injustices that have been perpetuated not only by our governmental system, but like I said, our judicial system, are this overarching hierarchy, the system that we're under. Right, this American system, which is, in puppetry terms, led by the president, and we had this special guy here, Mr. Trump, he's been doing a lot of flip flopping, a lot of wishy washy, a lot of ignition behind white supremacist movements, whether or not he want to admit it or not or what have you. But he's definitely been an amplification.
Oh, he knows.
Or provided it, so he knows what he's doing. He's a fox. He's provided as a symbolic amplification of how America's always been, right? If you're not under a rock, or if you're not,
cognitive dissonance,
right, and choosing aloofness because it's easier to live life that way. Welcome to the party. So wake up, and this has been a wake up bigger than ever. Our presidential race is something that's been a big push. We have two people, Biden and Trump. And you if anyone that knows Neff and I, we really don't care to get particularly into these folks, right? Because we realize there's a bigger system at hand. These are the parties that play their parts in a bigger systemic issue. But we're here to talk tonight directly about it. And we look at these. We have a Trump, we have a Biden, both with very sordid, diabolical past. Some still living their past as of now, i.e., Trump. Biden is, the ruling is out of what his now looks like, but he certainly had a sordid past with the Black community in the past, for sure. And as far as crime, being a staunch advocate of crime bills, a staunch advocate of essentially this idea of taking Black men off the street, Black youth off the street, and bypassing systems of social reform that could have very well supported in what takes place in low-income communities that Black people unfortunately tend to be disenfranchised and marginalized into, and by way of those issues, environmental issues, have to fight through. And usually it may be some unsavory choices being made. But we want to be clear. And there was a speech. Shoot, don't have the speech. But Brother Rizza Islam shared a medley of different speeches around what was taking place, and one of them, which was Biden talking about the crime bill, talking about why it matters to get behind it, to make sure his wife and his kids are safe from those people.
Because
and we realize these people are beyond reproach, beyond saving. So we need to take them out, and this is the way, right? Rather than being actually in. So basically speaking in clear terms, that there are ways that this could have been done, and also we are the creators of this systemic issue. So he very much admitted that what takes place and what happens with Black people in these silos of the ghetto communities is by design, right? Yes, we socially created this. He said so himself out of his own mouth, but also saying we don't have to still deal with it even though we created it.
Yes, sir, we don't.
Shouts out to accountability, which is something that's very piss poor in this community and social landscape. So we want to be clear on that. We want to be clear on these usual suspects, these players in the game, how they switch things up. You talk about over the centuries, Black Republicans and then fighting the Democrats, and then they switched up places and switched up parties, and then the Democrats represent the Blacks, but they don't take care of Black communities, and Republicans don't like. So who likes Black folks? Basically,
Black folks.
In these party systems. And I say that to say that if you're really paying attention as an African in the U.S., looking at these systems, especially if you're one of those that falls into the category of the low-income community or quote-unquote disenfranchised, marginalized communities, where we're bunched in, where we receive the least support as far as programs, education, healthcare, and things of that nature. A lot of these presidents, no matter who it is, the same shit, different day. They could be Republican, they could be Democrat, but the same things are still existing in these communities. So if you're really paying attention to African, if you're haven't moved into a different bracket and decided to disregard your past or disregard your community, right? If you're very much in it, then you know that change is to happen regardless of who the party is. But as long as there's no African centered policy or plan of action, it's going to be same shit, different day, no matter who the president is, no matter if Trump stays in office, no matter if Biden goes into office. And also we realize we can be clear that there's going to be residuals that will take place no matter which one of them wins for the remainder of this year. So we very much need to protect ourselves and be very much on high alert once the election rolls around. That said, I don't know if you want to speak on pick up on it, but when we talk about who we're voting for, right? Which is usually like a weird taboo conversation.
Supposedly, but it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
We want to be clear on what needs to take place. Now, I'm gonna speak honestly in here. Like, I'm not crazy about this having to vote for these folks this year. That these are our choices. I will say that as my personal stance, I'm not crazy about voting for either of them. But what I do understand, and I'm very clear of, is that there's a few action steps that need to take place within this, right? At the end of the day, the president signs executive orders and has things happen, which Trump has done haphazardly just for the sake of keeping votes. Be clear, he's not signing these things that pertain to the Black community, the African community, because he cares about African people. He wants African people to vote for him and push him to the edge. Why? Because he said even if he doesn't win, he will not leave. So he's not care about you, African, first off. Yep. He cares about staying in power, because power is what it's about for them, right? So I say that to say, and like I said, I'll pass it for you if you have anything else you want to say around that. But I'd be remiss if I didn't vote, right? And two, if I did not vote for the idea of having him gone, right? Which means, yes, casting a vote in favor of Biden and Kamala. But it's not just for them, right? And shouts out to, I think is what's his name, Yellow Pain or something like that, artist who he recently spoke about breaking down the judicial system and reminding folks of actually who has the power to move things around. We got to look at Congress. We got to look at the Senate. We got to look at the House. All these different other factors, our Supreme Court judge. All those factors that exist along with who's voted into power as president. So it's not just about president. It's not just about these two clowns, which I'll say that. It's about all the things that come along with them. So we want to be clear what we're putting our voice to, and who is in the supportive line for us to even get closer and closer to what we may believe at all in this system as a remote kiss on the cheek of liberation, right? But it still lies with us. So these people getting in office, let's say we get a Biden win, a Kamala win, then we as people, not just African people, but all people, need to hold them 1,000% accountable for everything we say we want them to do and that they say that they were agreed to. And I think that's where we tend to lack. We vote, we get an uproar, who's president, we vote, and then we get lax and happy with just because this evil person's not there anymore. We were so happy that George Bush left after putting us in a war that we're still in. Jeez. We got lax when Obama came in. And on the back end, a few, like some hundreds of people innocent people still died even under that. And privacy was lost still under that, despite the coup that we were blessed with the Obamas, and now we have Trump in office, who for 4 years has wreaked havoc on America, right, and imbued power or this ideology of power of racism into his supporter base as a quote unquote billionaire that somehow empowered the podunk folk in the backwoods that believe, because he believes in his racist stance, that he must be for them too. So now they're empowered to be violent, empowered to say what they feel like they want to say, despite them probably getting smacked up. But he's changed the landscape that's pretty much terrorized the American landscape. So now that we have a Biden or whoever in office, a billy goat, we just want him out. Never mind policies, never mind the agendas that we need to take care of, never mind the way we change the social landscape for actual betterment and the equity of peoples, and never mind the fact that African people have not seen a staunch and effective plan of action for African people to be respected and treated as human in this American landscape. Never mind that we've yet to see those things. Just get him out. And don't believe for 1 second, I encourage you not to believe for 1 second that these people are just two sides of the same coin. As long as there's no plan for the African on either side, then what loyalty should we actually have? But we're here, and we would do the due diligence and take the actual necessary steps and stay alert and stay sharp and stay reminded. Set your alarms and reminders around, I need to call them to action today over the next 4 years to put ourselves forward, period. No more backseats. I feel like I've spoken a lot, so I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Well, I think that we have like some challenges we're seeing the world.
Peace and blessings, Sister Cher. Thank you for joining us.
Peace and blessings. We please share the link. Also, please share the link. Invite folks into the conversation.
I feel like it's an important conversation.
It's really important for us to have the strategy conversation. Like, I know I've talked to a lot of different people, and I'm here to tell you that we have because of the way that we've been enculturated as African Black people in this American landscape, we move with the tides too often because we don't have an anchor. We don't have an anchor. I don't care how professional or where you are. There are certain pockets of us that know certain things, but the great majority of us, we just ride with the tide. It's not okay. And we have our compass is not giving us right direction because we have no anchor. And we have no anchor because I keep saying to you, African, an anchor for African people is a contradiction to anchors for the matrix.
Right.
So this is why we don't have an anchor, because we spent the majority of our time assimilating or trying to get by or in response to crisis or trying to make a way, trying to get our come up, trying to shake off some of the stuff. Those things have caused us to not take a position and an anchor that is supportive of African-centered conscious and Africans' greatest good, right? So that's in a short sum of contemporary time. That's what it's been for us. We have 401 years after chattel slavery, transatlantic slave trade. 401 years, starting on 1619. We're not talking about the Africans that were already here, right? We're not talking about the African people that were already here, not to discount them, the hundreds of millions of lives that were taken and killed intentionally over time. But specifically, we're talking about the Africans in this time that are going to be impacted by this legal system locally. Now, America put itself in a position. I remember seeing the 1985 Junior or Scholastic Reader, little newspaper that they give to the kids. I think I might have been in 5th or 6th grade or something like this, and we read through this, and it says something like America is going to be the world superpower in 20 years. And it's supposed to be a good thing. I don't see why that's a good thing, because again, like any other case, I'm in business. I tell you guys, I'm master of business. This is what I do, media management, business, dual major. And my concentration, formal training says that there should be no too big to lose. That's a bad thing when it comes to business. It also is a bad thing when it comes to business to have monopolies, because who's that bad for? That's not bad for the corporation. That's bad for the people. It's bad for the people when anybody has the monopoly, because you're less choices. At this point, we're a two-party system. And like we said before, we feel some kind of way about being forced to take the lesser of two evils. But the reason that we're in this position is because when Trump got into office, we all went to sleep and we got caught up with his tweets and his foolishness and his theatrics and the foolishness that none of us learned what the judicial system and what these things actually mean to African people. We do a lot of screaming and hollering. We talk about what's not in our communities, but then we also do not invest in our communities in large numbers, because most of us are getting along to get along. We spend so much of our time, I'm gonna do it myself. I hear grinding hard body in response to crisis that we don't Ubuntu and make that the priority and correct our bad behaviors, because it's a reason why we don't, generally work with other people. Like, I'm gonna get out here and make it happen for me, make it happen for mine. I'm gonna get on my grind, because it's difficult for us to work with each other because of our bad behaviors and our bad habits. All while some people say it's a choice. I do believe in personal responsibility, but these behaviors are symptoms of the illness, right? They're symptoms of the illness. So this is why we end up saying we can't work with each other. But instead of us, when Trump got into office, we knew when we was all lied to, we was all caught up in the whole conspiracy of 9/11, and it was an inside job, and they went killed Osama bin Laden. They had all of these wars going on. What was they doing in Afghanistan? They had no business over there in Afghanistan. All that stuff that we got involved with, and then the movies came out, and then the monuments shot up, and all of the events happened, and all of that stuff, and we got caught up in just the piddling around. And then I got Black folks standing up there charging with their conversations, and they're so starched and so committed to what, don't know what they're talking about. Don't know what they're talking about. We look at these folks like, what are you African talking about? Because that ain't none of your African business. Mind your African business. That's not your business. You weren't even in the conversation when it occurred. So because you wasn't even a part of the conversation, the planning, mind your African business. So we get into this legal system and we are now stuck in a position where we got to make the choice of less of two evils. And if you heard Biden's speech, I'm about ready to go over there and grab him by the inside of his nose and drag him in the back room and have a real stern type conversation with him. You feel me? Mm-hmm. So we get to actually be a part of our civic conversation. We're not a part of our civic duty. Because for you guys, listen, African in the Matrix checks in and checks out. Y'all ain't got no checkout. Y'all have no exit strategy plan. Community, let's talk. Africans, y'all got no exit strategy plan. We even got Africans talking about, why should I leave? My ancestors, yeah, that's well and good, but when you're talking about
you ain't
a
up on your
strategy,
ancestors now, so
you're not up on your ancestors
you're not even
now.
doing it
Only
now.
time they use their ancestors is when
It's
they
the
want
vote.
to go against voting or to go against something that has to do with you doing something. Because the reality of it is, I ain't leaving. My ancestors got blood in this soil. Okay, I hear you, but what else do you do to honor your ancestors any other time? Nothing. Not a thing. You celebrate all of these, you stuck in the matrix and you got an ambivalent conversation. There's something happening with your consciousness and you can't focus. So what you do is you do willful ignorance. Mm-hmm. So Africans, we do willful ignorance on a collective basis. These are the things that challenge us. So we got to look at this legal system and we got to look at our best possible strategy. These people, now we're going to talk about the three, we always did this, third, fourth grade, the three branches of government, judicial, executive, right? We talked about these things in school. So when you're talking about the sections of government, executive, judicial, legislative, when you're talking about these portions, the president, while we know is a puppet, we know that Trump and we're going to tell you guys, because I want y'all to really hear these stats. This president appointed already 218 judges. We have Article 3 judges. And then we have Article 1 judges. What is that, family? Do any of y'all know what that is? No, but I know what this is. But I wanted to make sure I was clear before I tell it to you so that I could translate it for you in lay terms. Okay, here it is. Let me just pull this up real quick, because we got to make sure that we on point. So this is the reason why we're looking at a Kamala Biden election, and this is the reason why we are sitting here in front of the lesser of two evils. Because what this man does right now is going to affect us for the next 40 years. Now, I'm going to tell you what happened in the past 40 years. Reagan had 2 terms. Bush had 1 term. Clinton had 2 terms. Bush had 2 terms. Obama had 2 terms. And now we're here at Trump. So based on this habit, the past is the greatest indicator of the future. So based on this, it looked like Trump may get 1 term. Because Trump may be following Reagan's space. So he comes in here with this Bush 1 term, and then Clinton comes behind him with 1 term. But then we have Bush with 2 terms. And see, this is something right here where this is like flipping the coin. Because at the end of the day, whoever is here, where's the Africans conversation? We don't know. But we know that when Reagan was in office, things was a little weak. We didn't, on the ground, the impact of Reagan, Bush, and Clinton wasn't really felt for African people. It depends on which circle you're in. Rockefeller drug laws came out of here. Immigration came out of here. International trade agreements and embargoes and came out of this experience. Those 3 years of those White House administrations. What came out of the next 3 White House administrations? Father Bush had 4 wars that went on with hundreds of trillions of dollars and owed money to China right now. China got big stock in American debt, so don't get it twisted. Obama out here signing reinforcing the Patriot Act. So if you want to create a society within a society, you won't be able to do it because they will say that you are an enemy of the state and that you are. They could drag you up and put you in a room and nobody knows where you are. You just disappear off the face of the earth because you're quote unquote an enemy of the state. Because allegedly that was supposed to keep us from getting terroristic threats, threats to our national security. And we got African people who not mind their African business talking about threats to national security. African people don't have threats to national security. International. We don't have international threats. Either people around the world just don't want to deal with us because they have a bad messaging about us. They said when somebody don't like it, they try to change the way everybody else sees you. So this is what they did with us. They don't like us. and they don't want to deal with us, and they don't want to have to come clear and correct with us. So they done change the way the world sees us. So they don't want to be bothered with us, but they're not out here trying to kill us. They're not coming for us because we don't make the kinds of decisions that impact countries. We don't threaten countries. African people in this country are not out here threatening other countries and other countries' people and trying to steal other people's resources. That's America doing that. See, you as an African, that's none of your African business. See, so when we start minding our African business, we can look at these judges. That's 218 judges that Trump has already appointed, 2 associate judges, 53 U.S. Court Appeals judges, 164 ancillary or district courts and U.S. judges, and he has 21 Article 1 judges, which are tribunal appellate courts that do investigations into agencies. You know, when an agency has a function and they need to be investigated. You know, you have Congress here, House of Representatives. You get your designated a number of congressional seats based on your judicial area, how many people are counted, how many people have voted, who they voted for. Your local government now is starting to trickle down and get smaller and smaller. Now you're in your local government and your state representative and your assembly person. So it trickles down and it gets so small. Now you're down here with your delegates, your community delegates. So you start creeping up this here, right, doing like this, then you know what your civic duty is. I give a workshop on civic duty. And African, if you're going to be in this thing, you don't have an exit strategy. So clearly, you're going to leave your generations here for the next 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 generations. If that's what your plan is, don't leave them worse off than you inherited it. Because if this man gets reelected, these judges are on the bench, most of them, until they die. And I don't know how these hateful people live 90 years. And we can lose Chadwick Boseman.
They feed up.
I don't get it. I just don't get it. That's another conversation. People are like, oh, that's me. I don't give a flying flip. I was born in the Matu. Okay? So I'm here for balance. And as I'm concerned, if you do wrong, wrong should come to you. If you do right, right should come to you. I don't see that, you know, living fat on the hog for 90 years on the backs of children while children are on the border in cages away from their parents because you got feelings and you riling up small segments of people. Small segment, because these folks are a small segment. They're not a part of the round table. They don't make no rules. They don't enforce nothing. Half of them barely speak English properly. Don't even know what they're even standing for, other than just wildness and savagery and misbehavior. That's about it. But those individuals are the individuals that Trump be talking to, and they be listening. And he be talking their foolishness conversation, none of which were here during, you know, slavery time. Because, you know, white folks who try, contemporary white folks try to say, you know, I wasn't no slave owner, my family don't know slaves. I don't believe in slavery. I don't believe in like all of that stuff. But these people weren't there either. But they take that behavior from then and they're bringing it current.
It becomes generational.
And they're bringing it current. Because racism is not something you're born with. It's something that you are taught.
Exactly.
It is nature versus nurture. So clearly there are spaces and places where people are nurturing racism and hatred. Okay. And these 40 judges, you want to know how white supremacy or white is not so supreme about being, you know, hateful and jerk and mistreating people and, you know, withholding, you know, human rights, right? Food is a human right. No one should be able to sell you food. They really shouldn't. You should be able to trade food. Food grows in your backyard. It was someone else's idea to stack people on top of each other to the point where people no longer have land to grow their own food. Hear this, family.
At one point, trading food was a thing.
This is what you did, family. My great-grandmother had vegetation. She walked up the road about a half a mile to the Manhattan Smokehouse, and she would get her sausage and her beef and her fat back and all of that for him because he would treat it in his shed. He had he was a butcher, and she would get eggs from him as well. So she had the okras and, you know, the collard greens and lima beans and the sweet peas and potatoes and carrots she would grow back there. What else? Okra, peppers and all of this. This is what great grandmother would grow. I've seen this. Some of my siblings have never even saw my great grandmother's piece of land. This woman didn't have teeth for the past 25, 30 years of her life. So she literally ate mostly biscuits, buttermilk biscuits, and lima beans. Mostly. I'm just saying, you trade it. She take what she got, she go down the road, or she send somebody else up the road to trade for her a basket of fruits, vegetables, and he would send back eggs, sausage, a few pieces of steak, right? Right? So I'm saying this to you. It was someone else's great idea under the guise that we're overpopulated, that we got to find somewhere to put people because no more hunter-gatherer is necessary. So somebody came up with an idea that, no, we don't need to have people agriculture sprawled out on huge pieces of land growing and feeding themselves. No, we're going to put everybody to stack them on top of each other. We're going to cut this land up and we're going to regulate this land and we're going to start parceling out this land. See, this is someone else's grand idea, African. You're not thinking outside of that space. Because this is what it's always been for you. But I'm here to tell you, it doesn't always have to be that way for you.
It doesn't have to be that way, period. And we've grown to accept that. It's become such a societal condition that we've grown to accept it. Oh, that's the way it is. Actually, no, it's not. That's the way somebody made it.
Yes,
that's the way somebody made it. And but because we're so used to it by virtue of repetition, the mother of all learning, we've accepted that this is what the norm is supposed to be, and it is not. By base standards of what nature has defined for us, this shit is wrong. Period.
Food is a human right.
Food should not be under lock and key. Healthcare should not be under lock and key. No. Education essentially should not be under lock and key. All of these things are these are essentially transactional. You can give this and receive this in reciprocity and growth as human beings, as village, as people, and coexisting with one another. Because we're giving something and receiving something that fortifies us in a cycle and keeps us going. Why? Because we're also moving in a cycle to keep the earth going. Right, for those that believe in God and want to have you, like, we want to talk about being in being here in God's image, being shepherds of the earth. We're here to be protectors and stewards of what is here, right? Not privatizing it and not being trolls and landmongers, controlling natural resources to put others against one another, to have somebody in power and create a hierarchy of power that has people at their necks, has poor people mad at poor people and rich people putting them against each other while taking their money. That doesn't work.
I'm just trying to figure out what the obsession is with what did you get? What did you get out of the deal? And then there are people who have such a skewed because they've lived in a bubble and they've lived detached and disconnected from other people that they've never learned to integrate. They integrate and cohabitate.
Right, real integration,
like really cohabitate. I look out into the community and it really annoys me to a great degree. I used to look out into Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Now, mind you, I like safe communities. We all like safe neighborhoods. We see misbehaviors. Like I said to you, African, if that brother's out there selling drugs, he's somebody's son. You probably know his mother. See, is there certain things that we did in our community that we did not get a hold to and dial back? And we allowed it to become a cancer and burn up so much of our space. And now we're begging for other people to come into our community who are not going to be good to us to have rule over our community. When there was a time we didn't need nobody to have rule over our community. There was a time when we had ethics and moral value systems and we did what we needed to do in our community. And if there was someone stepping out of line, it was a rare occasion, right? So I'm looking out into Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. I'm seeing what Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn is becoming. I'm seeing what all these gentrified communities all over the place is becoming. And I see these nice things. So you mean to tell me African people don't deserve to have nice things? You mean to tell me people who are having a white culture experience got to walk around? They got to be on marble floors and they got to have big waterfalls and big greenery and security guards and concierge services? That's what you do? So you're literally saying that there's value in treating these people good, and we're not going to treat these people good. Because some of those landlords that own those buildings are the same slum landlords who let big rat holes come through the community just like this, and ceilings falling down in the community, and broken doors, basic security. There should be a lock on the door. How many back in the day got raped in hallways with no lights? Because the doors, basic security was not provided, right? So understand what happens with time. So this is happening over a course of time. Now, this next cycle that's happening is 40 years of these folks maintaining white-centered consciousness, nurturing continued hatred and racism. From people who live in bubbles, who have no access, who are listening to their scientists tell them their foolishness, because all of this has been padded by pseudoscience. It's been padded by people with stock in the game, right? Remember they talk about Carl von Linnaeus and his theory around race and like, this is ridiculous, absolute madness. Then we have Cheikh Anta Diop, who comes back with his research to tell you that that's not. But you know what? They're not teaching Cheikh Anta Diop's research it's not mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
They manipulate everybody by saying something mainstream. No, what is white center consciousness?
Right.
Basically.
Right.
You need to integrate whatever you're doing
Right.
and make it fit into acceptable white center consciousness, what they're calling mainstream.
And that is what's so key.
It's dysfunctional, man. It's diabolical.
It's really key. When we want to now look at everything. We want to examine the landscape of what certain terminology we've grown used to even means. When we think about, like Neff said, mainstream. When we think about the first to do this, the first doctor, first black doctor, first black lawyer, first black athlete to do X, Y, and Z, the sexiest person in America, all this type of stuff. But these are defined by in terms of who, right? And who is the framework? Who is the base foundation of these ideologies that we've been grown to, we've been conditioned to believe in. Right? What is mainstream? What is fashion? What is what is top fashion? What are these things? Who says? Who says? Because when you look at the African landscape, we define a lot of culture that becomes global, but receive the short end of the stick in actual value and respect and integrity around the origination of it. Right? And this is something we dealt with for a very long time. You were running off of like a long list the other day. We've seen long lists of all the things that Black people have created.
Hold on a second, y'all.
All the things
you want to get into this life? Get into this life
down
with us
to
right
from
now.
cell phones to the video game cartridges, air conditioning.
Black inventors.
Let's get it.
Here it goes. Air conditioning unit. Frederick Jones, 1949. The Almanac, Benjamin Banneker, 1791. Auto cutoff switch, Granville Woods, 1839. Auto fishing device, George Cook, 1899. Baby buggy.
Carrying your babies.
Baby buggy, Williams Richardson, 1889. Biscuit cutter, Andrew Ashbourne, 1875. Blood plasma bag, Charles Drew, 1945. Chamber commode, Thomas Elkins, 1894. Clothes dryer, George Sampson, 1971. The curtain rod, Samuel Strachan, 1892.
And the support.
Curtain rod and the support. Doorknob, Osborne Dorsey, and the doorstop. The doorknob and doorstop, 1878. Egg beater, Willie Johnson, 1884. Eric Lamp, the electric lamp bulb, Lewis Latimer, 1882. Elevator, Alexander Miles.
Elevator, hello, in your office buildings up in Wall Street.
Eye protector, Paul Johnson, 1880. The fire escape ladder, Joseph Winters, 1878. The fire extinguisher, Thomas Marshall, 1872. And a folding bed, Leonard Bailey, 1899. And the folding chair, Nathaniel Alexander, 1910.
Making sure your barbecues are lit and everyone is accounted for.
The golf tee, the guitar, the hairbrush, hand stamp, the ice cream scoop, insect destroyer gun, ironing board, the keychain, the lantern, the lawn sprinkler, lemon squeezer, the lock, lubricating cup, lunch pad, pail, mailbox, the mop, the peanut butter, pencil sharpener, record player arm, rolling pin, shampoo headrest, spark plugs, stethoscope. Straining comb, street sweeper, phone transmitter, thermostat control, and traffic light, and a tricycle. And all of these were done by Africans. And I see we had 1971 was the latest right there, 1971, which was George Sampson. But most of these things came in the late, right after 1864. Most of them. They got the record player arm came in 1819.
1800s, yeah. And why couldn't they get the respect around that? Because who owned the patents?
Who owned the patents? Who made it better? It's a great thing when you teach people how to do it the best way, and then they turn around and try to go behind you and do it better than you because you've already gave them the format. And oftentimes, because of the nature of the way that we've been enculturated, we don't want to add value to one another. We want to take it for ourselves and try to rebrand it, redo it, do it for ourselves. Instead of doing Ubuntu as your default thinking, which means, hold on, let me add to this and let's expand this together. No, I'm going to take what you got, your form foundation. I'm going to go over here and do something else. So we realize that our compadres over here, they have not learned to integrate and co-collaborate in a way that is large enough for it to make a difference. So it's a need to have justices, 218 of them. How many of them are African American or people of color? right? So what we're going to do, we're going to deal with people who are raised in a bubble, who have a certain perspective, which I call a white-centered consciousness, or white cultural experience, because once whiteness became a card or a classification, came with it a culture of behavior and a culture of ways of being that is only that's only shared among people who are less melanated or no melanated, right? Less to no melanation, right? So they have now a cultural experience that they share together. I don't care where they happen to be, living in a bubble together and with their own consciousness. And these individuals are going to perpetuate this same behavior. So this is where injustice happens. This is where people who are not voting for reparations is happening. You know, even your 48 laws of power says never appeal to anyone's good conscience. Appeal to their sense of self-serving. So what are they getting out of giving African people reparations? Although we all are clear, including them, that it is owed to us, it's just too much trouble to try to find out where all of this money coming from, who's going to pay it, because they've been stealing, they've been doing church and state, they was doing, you know, government, corporations, everybody in bed together. Because remember, the legal system here in America was built on white men who were landowners and business owners. So that fundamental process is still continuing. And when we put 218 Caucasian white men having white cultural experience, or white women, because white women and white men, they're shareholders in this conversation of whiteness as the norm, white standard, white domination. They're co-collabs. And people make things happen and people don't make things happen. So it's not an elusive, untouchable experience that's somewhere that you can't grasp. It is grasped. You can grab it. It requires for you to change your behaviors, though. It requires for you to do something, be something, and behave differently and be responsible for your actions. Like, you can't just constantly get along to get along, because you're getting along to get along will continue to create what we've been creating. And at this point, African, we're in a very difficult situation because this matrix has obsoleted us. We are no longer necessary. You understand? So they don't need as many of us. So at this point, we're vulnerable. So since the African is not considering his exit strategy, because that would be the most viable solution in this moment, is for you to be looking at your 10 to 20 year exit strategy. Because if you look at the landscape down the line, we're no longer necessary to the matrix. There was a time when we were necessary. We're no longer necessary. Other than, I saw a meme once with a lion and a lamb laying on the lion, saying that the lion looked like the lion and the lamb are getting along well, but the reality of it is the lion and the lamb are getting along right now until that lion get hungry and he wants something to eat. He gonna turn his butt right over there and eat that lamb. So you're comfortable as long as you're just there. But when it comes time to be used for science experiments, like what they keep doing to us, they're doing these vaccinations. They do these huge community type social experiments that you have no idea is occurring because you're not thinking critically. You're just going along to get along. Whatever comes out, you jump on the bandwagon. Grandma says some things you just let go. You just watch that bus pull right on out. You stand right there. You don't join the crew. You let it go. And that's part of how some of the development that I have personally came to be. I have no problem standing back here and letting all that foolishness pass me right on by. I don't feel no way about it. Folks look at me sideways like, oh my goodness. No, I'm not going. Thanks. Go ahead, y'all have a good time. No, thank you. I don't feel no FOMO, no fear being left out, fear of missing out. I don't give a flying flip because I know how to mind my African business. Come on, Africa. Let's mind our African business.
Mind your funky business.
I got my sheet, girl. I got my sheet, y'all. So look, this is your ballot, y'all. And listen, the ballot, this one is a little bit different than the other one because the other ballots, you go down. In these ballots, you go across, so pay attention. These here, you go across, not down. I've seen my ballot sheets. We were going down the sheet. Don't go down the sheet. Go across the sheet, y'all. Across the sheet. And Joe Biden is A. It's the first choice up there on the top. Okay, so you're gonna get that. I'm not gonna mail mine, so I'm gonna hand deliver mine. But it came with that. It came with an envelope to mail it back in. It came stamped with my address on it. That's not the sheet that goes in there. This one here got a sticker on. I'm supposed to put it in here in the secret box, in the secret envelope here. Close it up and then put it in here. and then put this in the mailbox where this is showing out this view window. But I'm not going to do that, family. I'm going to run my information right down there. Myself in my hand is telling me to put it in the mailbox, et cetera, et cetera. But when they see these envelopes right here, if somebody want to fool around with something, they can just start shredding these guys right here.
Nah.
So I'm not going to do that. See, I'm going to take mine down there to the place like they usually do. When I go down to the place, I'm going to put mine through the reader.
So we're not going to do this fugazi ass vote and then have it be wasted. We're going to make it count. So we're going to put it right in your hand.
Yeah, you know, at the voting poll, you have to slide it through the digital reader. So you put it on the papers first, and then you feed it through the feeder, and it reads your et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to send it.
Read your et cetera.
I'm not going to send mine in the mail, family. So pay attention. Come on, family. And we got to look at our exit strategy. And if we don't have an exit strategy, folks, we got to stop talking crazy. Because we just say too much foolishness stuff. We do. We say too much foolishness.
Yeah. Stop trying to save the couch in your burning house. Let it go.
Oh,
the couch is gone.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
Let the couch go. Let that side table go. I know it was a nice finish, but now it's finished. Time to leave the house and start anew.
We had a fire drill here. Not a fire drill. We had a fire alarm the other day, and I remember fire alarms from school.
Well, it should have been a fire drill, but it wasn't.
It was no drill because it was actually a fire. It was smoke somewhere coming from us.
Right.
I could smell it once I got out. But the point is, in a building like that we live in, you're not really looking at the building burning down per se because it's a lot of cement and brick. But you're more concerned with smoke inhalation and choking because where there's smoke, there's fire. So you're looking at all of those chemicals and paints and furnitures or whatever else is burning and then not having access to get out. So for me, I'm not waiting to find out. See, they had 9/11, et cetera, and some of those folks didn't get up and leave. They sat there and just waited for the security guard or the front desk or for an announcement. For me, I'm leaving. Y'all can call me from the stoop. Call me from up the street. You're not going to find me in there trying to figure it out. Because I actually did call twice, and I didn't get the information I wanted. I got up and left. And left everything. I took our IDs.
We got our IDs,
and our phones, and our shoes, and we out. And that was that.
Because we wasn't trying. We ain't gonna be fool. We ain't gonna try to catch COVID neither.
Listen,
we gonna battle all these demons. So we gonna battle the fire, right? Jump out the fire and battle this COVID.
Come on, y'all.
Stand back,
family. Let's get it together. Let's get it together because as I don't listen. It's traumatic. And it's actually a social experiment. I just want you to understand it. There's actually a social experiment that we are now in a position where we have to choose the lesser of two evils, and both of them are bad.
Watch the Truman Show.
Okay. But it's really a social experiment. We've been telling folk to watch that Truman Show.
I wish somebody would come back and tell us what they thought.
I wish somebody would.
We're putting it out again. Watch the Truman Show, right?
It's specifically about voting. I think it was on Netflix.
But if you have not seen it. I don't know if it
is on there now. I'm going to see.
Please watch it. It's a not off base assessment of the social landscape. I trust and believe in that. Watch the Truman Show. Well, it says that it's on Hulu. Let us know what you think. How do we watch it?
We watch it on Netflix, but it might not be on there no more. Yeah, we watch it on Netflix. Yeah. It says that it's on Netflix.
Watch the Truman Show. We would love to see your feedback on the Truman Show.
Yeah, it is. It is. Remind me. No.
Because we are in the show. What is what? You said a reminder? Oh, I was about to play it. We got to watch it when it comes back on again.
Yeah, so it's not on here now, but it was. They might have taken it off. Now it's back. Now it'll, when it comes back, we'll get a notice that it's back online, but it's not at this point because I just pulled it up. It's not here now. But African,
get your life together.
You need a visual. You need a visual of your living experience. Mm-hmm. Check out the Truman Show. It's different from Matrix. See, I like the Matrix, but I know the Matrix is a lot for some people to take in because it's just so multi-layered and multifaceted. And like I tell you, African, in order to really get a full understanding of this whole experience and bring these things together, you really need a very broad range of academic understanding and information. Understanding information. A lot of people have subject matter experts, but because they haven't put it into their lives, it doesn't show up in their energy. It doesn't show up in their walk in the world. And there are certain behaviors that they have that are contradictory to their learning. Because if you had learned this, then you shouldn't be envious. You shouldn't have ego. You shouldn't be. There's certain things that if you learned what's necessary, you shouldn't have it. It shouldn't be there. Those are parts of the being that I'm not accepting the fact that you have taken it from the Matrix that, everybody got to make mistakes or everybody got to. No, that's not true. Those are things that the Matrix tells you to keep you piddling along, because all the Matrix ever needs, according to Neely Fuller, is more time to continue to refine.
If you were lucky enough to have been able to experience quote unquote mistakes and hard lessons, do you want to be in a space where you can understand that that's your opportunity to pay it forward to the rest? No, so I was trying to get to pay it forward to the rest of the next generation, so they don't have to make those same mistakes. Because you shouldn't necessarily have to make mistakes in order to learn something. But those that have should be the ones passing the baton on to ensure that those mistakes aren't made again. Right, so that's something we want to be mindful of. Life does not have to be hard. You have been socially conditioned to believe life is hard and life is difficult. It must be hard and difficult in order for you to enjoy it. No, they're just making it hard and difficult for you so they can enjoy it because it's fun. Watch the Truman Show. Shouts out, Sister Sherry says she's not moved by Biden. Trust sister, we are not moved either. That's for sure. But we know that there's some steps that need to be taken. Once again, want to reiterate. We're not moved by Biden. We're not moved by any of these suckers. However, we know that this is a game. So this is a game. So if we're going to play the game, we're going to play it strategically and play it correct. Get Trump out, get these fools in, and then hold them to task to do what they said they're supposed to do, or they're going to do, or what we want them to do, and push it in order, because things magically pop up through in amidst the administration, and they sign off on it. So let's put them to task. That's for sure. Brother Frank Williams, peace and blessings. Thank you for joining us. Again, folks, if y'all finding value in this conversation, we're talking about voting, census, and everything between about our social landscape. Please share the broadcast, and please continue to share your comments. We do appreciate you. Brother Frank says Trump and McConnell. Ugh. Every time I hear McConnell's name, I just can't stand him. He's like the worst person in the Turtle Club. Trump and McConnell, after they leave office, will have over 200 judges on various parts of the judicial system, some with lifetime terms. So the battle will continue. Demographics will eventually defeat them. We pray so that demographics will defeat them and push them forward. But we shouldn't have to wait no lifetime for these folks. Some got to change it. It might have to mean we have to just straight up go in and turn things over. But we're not ready for that. And that's the reality of it. That thing came up again.
Taken a whole nother position. We could have created when Trump got into office, since everybody was so mad and depressed, like people were literally emotionally depressed, like sickening, like nauseating.
Because guess what? That's not going to get them out of office. What happened
with folks is they were supposed to create their own third party, and then they were supposed to start campaigning and pulling Hispanic, Latino, pulling in Latinx, pulling in Asian, pulling in East Indian. You were supposed to pull in. That's what was supposed to actually happen at that moment.
And it wouldn't even be creating a third party, be creating the 10th, but there's so many parties already that we're not entertaining because we've been so conditioned to these damn two-party situations. How does that work to work with just two parties and a whole entire nation of people? 350 million people in this nation.
Because there's some people who function from that prism, so they want to make sure that everybody else continues to operate in that prism. But let's look at what's available
what we got? Who's on the ballot?
that we have not considered. We have, oh gosh.
Let me get it.
Where it's right here. Where is it? Oh Lord, it's so tiny you can't even see, Lord. People's Choice. The People's Choice.
These are okay. I got
here.
It. So we got, of course, our usual suspects. We got the Democrats. We got the Republicans. We also have the Alliance Party, right? The Socialism and Liberation Party. You like the way that sounds. The Green Party.
Yes.
The Unity Party America.
Yes.
All right. Sound like Miley Cyrus might run that one.
Okay.
Constitution Party.
Right.
Libertarian Party.
Right.
This is what we have. This is what we have available.
We have available to us.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
it's even 9. I think it's actually more than that.
It's more than that.
They may not have had a nominee to make it to the ballot. But know that you have, you know the process of getting on the ballot, what that requires to get on the ballot, right, family? There's a whole process of this stuff, and you don't have to be a lawyer, and you don't have to continue to expect somebody else to tell you what these things mean, because these people are not going to. The master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. So even doing it this way requires you to still have an exit strategy, because if you're looking far enough into the future, you do realize that there's no way to balance out this madness. It really isn't a way to balance out this madness. So your greatest strategy in this moment would be to buy yourself some time, because the Matrix only is doing that, and it continues to do that, and then it gets us all bumbled up. We got bumbled up after Trump got into office. First of all, we were all enamored when Obama was in office because he's a brown person. We were enamored.
It was an
the night he got arrested. The night he arrested. Lord have mercy.
Dude, that was a 40 and like a mug.
The night he got elected, I cried out my face for about 10 minutes. And I just said a quick prayer. Like, I just hope this man make it out of the office with his life. That's all I can think of. Because I'm saying to myself, it's all for theory. It's all for theatrics. We know that America is like very big and hinged on its theatrics. Mm-hmm. This is why we have slave owners and a man who had a slave, a 12-year-old girl, bricked into a wall beside his bedroom, carved into a mountainside. We celebrate this kind of behavior. And as Africans, you want to run around here and be patriotic. This is what I'm saying to you. If you connect with your African-centered conversation, there's a lot of contradiction here. Because there's no way that I'm going to be all right with Thomas Jefferson with a 12-year-old girl bricked into the side of his bedroom. Mm-hmm. So he can go treat himself to rape whenever he feels like it. Because at 12 years old, she's just in it for her life at this moment. Mm-hmm. She's just in it for her life. That's it. Right? So I'm not here for that. So this is what I'm saying. America's here for the theatrics. So we got past Obama, and now we get Trump. And everybody is up in arms. And there's so much foolishness in this country. This is why I said to myself, and I've been saying to myself, if people who are having a white cultural experience claim that they are not racist and that they don't subscribe to white supremacy, although they benefit from white-centered consciousness and the white cultural experience, why aren't you guys in the street, stark raving mad, taking names while the police out here killing people? If you actually connect to brown people as people, and you connect to their families, and you connect to their children, and you connect to their husbands, and you look at the pipeline from school to prison, and you see this inequity, and you can see this inequity. You got math, basic mathematics. This is so insanely diabolical that it's not even difficult to conceive of. Mm-hmm. We literally see it. And white folks are not in the streets since they claim the dominant class. So I don't need white folks standing beside me holding a sign. That's not what is helpful to me. What's helpful to me is for you to go down there and do white things in support of African people.
Right, activate that. That's
do white things in support of African people. Don't come do black things, protesting and screaming and hollering on the mics and flipping out and getting agitated. Don't do those things, because some of those things are therapeutic and cathartic for African people because they're the ones that are in oppression. So that's the things that they do for their psychological, mental, and emotional well-being. No, you stay in your white cultural experience and do the things that white people do, but do it to help black folks and African folks. Mm-hmm. Okay? Do that.
Do it to help the human landscape.
Do it like that. And if you go ahead.
We're not, I'm not to coach, but like really, it's like we look at this as is the dominant conversation. It tends to be black and white because blacks, the African people on this soil still have faced injustices, have not faced any type of change in agenda. But in the day, it really is also looking at your white landscape as a means to heal not even just African people, but other people that have been colonized. You have work to do. It is not with you sitting with us chilling.
No, I don't need that. I'm not here for that.
We can be friends, whatever in that case, but to really be friends, go out and do what needs to be done, anti-racism or whatever that looks like in your communities with your people. Because it doesn't serve to be out here protesting with us, and then your grandpappy is still over there spewing racist shit at dinner time. Still, and you've been protesting for years.
And all they say
you work at a community program in Flatbush or Brownsville or whatever the case may be, but you still go home and still got racist parents. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. You have to be the change agent in your communities with your people so they can understand and get a perspective, because they will never get a perspective from a brown person, from a black person, from an African around how they're being oppressed, because they don't understand, which is why the whole position they hold in the first place. It's nonsensical. It's nonsensical to someone who doesn't understand it. What is this? This makes no sense. There's stuff here. There's jobs here. What do you mean you can't get a job?
These people can do anything. This is
if
America.
They're not the ones,
America. You can do anything you want to do.
If they're not the ones directly, like physically doing the actual oppressing, they're not attributing it to psychological. But they're not doing the physical oppression or feeling they're physically holding it back. They're not going to understand what we face as people. What that oppression actually looks like. There's black people that don't understand what their own oppression looks like, because they believe in white people are doing it and someone's getting successful. You got a Diddy, you got a Jay-Z. He was a drug dealer, and now look at him now.
And a high school dropout.
And he's healed stuff. Look, Trump's the fucking president. He's a dummy. But yeah, time and time again, he's showing up. There's something here for me. So why should I believe that there's oppression? And that's problematic because these are the narratives that we believe in that have been fed to us by a system that doesn't want us to succeed in it. Period. We have to know to learn to read.
It says that you have to participate in this. You see, where I come from, you should be able to opt out.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to opt out and live an equitable life, opting out.
Mm-hmm.
See, the way these folks hear it and see it is, if you play by the game and you're in the matrix, you'll be fine. You can do whatever these folks are doing because these folks just strap yourself, get up your bootstraps or what have you. That's what they say. But that means that you also have to detach yourself from your African center. You gotta, what we see a lot of our people doing out of desperation. They think it's clever. They caricature themselves. They make themselves an entire cartoon or caricature or some, contortioned version of themselves or a portion of themselves in order to fit into mainstream or make themselves acceptable. When we watch television, and we don't watch a lot of television, but we watch certain things for certain perspective, and every now and again, certain things for entertainment purposes, we can tell what the writer's desk would look like. We know what what the writer's room looked like. We look at it, we go, oh, there ain't a single black person in that room at all because they thought this was of sufficient. You see something happening in the movie, a black person step up and say something off color, it's a black person, or it's a black woman, or you see somebody getting their heads chopped off, it's a black man. You know what the room looks like, and this consciousness is on autopilot because the matrix cracking the whip is not standing there to create these outcomes.
But it's created enough of it in a diabolical cycle that's become residual that people uphold without it having to even try anymore.
Knowing it, without even realizing it.
Young white people, black people uphold these things without realizing because they think it's fun. And not even realize that they're upholding what the system has created for us. So now it's like, okay, we've done enough of this chopping down to where they're chopping each other down. We can sit back and focus on what we need to do to maintain its power. They're killing each other in their communities and X, Y, and Z, and they're doing this and that. And the white kids are over here faking the funk and shaping the narrative for them to make them think it's cool. And meanwhile, they're just as expendable too. Who cares? They're casualties. As long as we keep power, period. That is the top level narration of how this system is operating for people. Young white people are expendable, poor white people are expendable, Africans are expendable, people of color across the whole gamut are expendable as long as white men, the patriarchal system as it has stood up to now, is in power. That's why you got Rockefellers and all these old ass people living to be 108,000 years old and looking like dust because they've had 20 heart transplant, probably for fucking black arts. Get out.
And this is come on. At the end of the day, and these guys are not nice, and they're not willing to have a conversation about anything other than their foolishness, and they don't see anything. They feel like it's their duty, the white man's burden, to prepare for everyone else and to give everyone else. Now,
this is why the U.S. is in every country doesn't need to be in, causing wreaking havoc everywhere.
But this is the reason America is in America and Europe are in every country because these are kissing cousins. These are kissing cousins. Mm-hmm. They want to make you think that they're just disconnected, but they're actually the same body. They're giving this to both. They're burning the candle at both ends.
Britain's baby.
They're burning the candle at both ends to keep it all covered, to keep the space covered. If we split up, we can cover more ground, is what they said. Mm-hmm. So if we look at it the way we look at it as an African, with your African-centered consciousness, they burning the candle at both ends. They just broke up to cover more ground. At the end of the day, how does less than 15% of the world population manipulate and bully the world population, or most of the world population? Because there's some folks that's just not having it, and America doesn't want to have any smoke with them at all, right? But at the end of the day, for the most part, America steps away from the United Nations. How is this possible? How is this possible? How can you say, that you're a part of the global network, but then you step away from the United Nations? This is a big deal. This is a big deal, folks. This is conversation that matters to you as an African. Don't get into stuff that is none of your business. Mind your African business. Weed through the weeds, get through the noise, and get to your African business. We got, I work on, our spaces, we work on the consciousness, and we work on the African-centered consciousness, to redirect. Because if you're planning on winning at something, you definitely want to get a coach to help you along that journey. So, I'm here for the transformational aspect of African-centered consciousness, as you put it on as a daily practice. Because so many of us say a lot of things and we do a lot of things and we go to Kwanzaa, but it's not in our daily function. You have to make African-centered consciousness a daily practice. Should be vibratory. It should manifest in your energy, in the things that you dream about at night. It should be in your dreams. So it's going to require for you to work very hard at it, because initially the Matrix has programmed behavioral conditioning since before you were in the womb. They started with your mother's diet. They went from your mother's diet to your mother's emotions, whatever her tension levels were, her chemical and emotional levels were, and her ups and downs. You were being already programmed with that from before you got into the planet, before you came out. Okay? So once you got here, and this goes from generation to generation to generation to generation.
From stress to hope is all genetic.
It's down. It's going through you. It's going through. So, and there's going to be some things for you to do to create a different outcome in your daily practice. So I keep talking about this critical mass. We need a lot of people to do this thing. Not a whole lot of people, but we need a great deal of people. The African in America has a $1 trillion. We have enough buying power to be a nation. But we continue to function as individuals, and because we do, we're vulnerable. So we need a collective strategy, and we need folks to get out of the past. We got to create a society and an energy and a space for us as a community so that we leave our children something different from what we got. Because if we do not prepare for our children, we are creating a way for our children to yet again go back into being minors, because there won't be many jobs available for African people since you're not necessary, other than manual type jobs. And for the few who have certain types of professional jobs, they might be okay for a generation or two. Dave Chappelle said, listen, you better get out here selling drugs or tame these white people. He said, because I've never seen it done any other way. It was a joke, but it was true to some degree. If you plan on playing in the Matrix, it's done in the Matrix, where you either do something illegal to get your come up, or you get out here and you tap dance and you contortion yourself and you create yourself as a caricature in the Matrix to entertain the Matrix. But see, I'm standing in a space where you get to stand upright as an African and opt out of the foolishness and still thrive in equity, as sovereignty. Equitable, fair, and equal, without having to go. You don't have to opt into the foolishness. I'm not here for a 2-party death sentence. Is it the gun or the knife? How you want to take it? What's your poison? Pick your poison. But we here, family, and we need to do something different moving forward. And we need to be able to hear the good strategy, and we need to be able to differentiate who's talking African-centered consciousness, what is the greatest good for the African, or who's talking about some foolishness. Because it's a lot of folks out here talking and they should not be speaking. And they unfortunately are adding to the noise. It's not effective and viable strategy. African, you need a strategy. Your goal is not to integrate. Your goal is to be able to make your own decisions on your own accord. And until you get in a position where you can make a decision on your own accord, you are not free. You're not free. You're forced to have to be manipulated by participating in the Matrix. That's your gauge. I'm not talking about you decided what you were going to wear to work today, or you decided what kind of car you're going to live, or how long you're going to drive this nice car until you get pulled over by the police and have a harassing interaction, or what neighborhood you were going to live in before your children go to the store for Skittles and Arizona before you get harassed. I'm not talking about that choice. That's not a choice. Pick your poison. Pick your timeline. So family, get out here and vote. We're not happy about this Harris-Biden ticket. Kamala Harris and your Biden ticket. So, but it is what it is, family.
Yeah.
And then once they get in office, we're going to have to run up in these junk to try to get them to get some of these court justices, because look, this man had already appointed 218 justices.
But that's the point. That's the point.
This is crazy.
That's the point that I've always stood by. Even when Trump first got elected, and I remember one time like talking to somebody about it, or passing by a guard in our building. I remember this happened. They said, "Oh, what are we going to do about Trump?" I'm like, "You ain't worried about Trump?" I was like, "I'm not worried about." I don't know what the conversation was about. I was like, "I'm not worried about Trump. I'm worried about what the people do." Because at the end of the day, the people, if this is supposed to be true democracy, people should be able the ones standing strong, standing together to create the changes with this happening within the system. We should not be at the whim of these particular people's, these particular quote unquote higher powers. If the people are going to just follow what's being done and and just complain about it rather than not move the needle on anything, then yeah, we're in a pretty worse way. But we have to put a foot down and say when enough is enough. And if we're really like adamant about this being enough, then we need to do something.
Well, they said that only people who have a problem with the Matrix are people who are not doing so well in the Matrix.
But why should
this is a theory?
I don't want to be rewarded by this Matrix because this Matrix did it for me.
But this is the narrative, and there's also a narrative that you got a huge wealth gap in most spaces, in most communities. Here in New Jersey, it's something like 5,600 to 325,000. So a community that's having $300,000 a year conversations is different from a community that's having $5,600 a year conversations. Their social needs, their emotional, and their material needs are going to be vastly different. People who are having a $56,000 a year conversation, that's $506,000 a year conversation, are individuals who are more concerned with buying sneakers and getting tattoos and dancing and twerking and dropping it like it's hot. And there'll be a few in that pocket who are going to be trying to beat their way out of that madness. And the few that are going to be trying to beat their way out of that madness are going to be looking to the $300,000 conversation, living conversation, as to what their steps should be. They're not going to be looking at trying to endeavor into creating a stronger African-centered consciousness, because there's no accolade and there's no trajectory forecast for an African-centered consciousness up the scale to a $300,000 annual conversation. So you have these two different demographics, and you're trying to get the people who are having a $300,000 annual conversation, two-family home, making $325,000 or more, okay, versus varying degrees of your lowest rung at $5,600 annual. You're trying to get these individuals up here to quote unquote supposed to be having a compassionate and an interactive conversation about what's happening with these individuals here. And the way they look at it is they look at, we up on the high mountain and we're going to drop down some bread for the peasants. And whatever we get them is better than what they got. So that's an issue. And these are also the same individuals. Our mayor today said that 40% of New Jersey people voted for Trump. 40% of New Jersey folks actually voted for Trump. So there's a whole, and if we're talking about Newark, and we're talking about Newark in and of itself having a wealth gap of $300 and something thousand a year versus $5,600 and something thousand a year, who are these people? What is this matrix? What are those individuals? What is the psychographic composite of these two different types of individuals? So this is what you're looking at, African. This is why you have to mind your African business. This is the reason why your intention has to be more focused on building a critical mass and getting over simple-minded stuff. Ego and trying to show off and trying to be the miracle Negro and trying to be the best Negro in this space, trying to show off. Like, it's the most insane thing. I've never seen such a thing in my life. I've never seen something. The most important thing for you as an African is self-mastery. Be better than you were yesterday. Don't try to be better than somebody else, because you're not on their journey. Their journey is for them. You be on your journey. And every time people show me their faces that they're wrapped up in ego or jealousy and foolishness, small, mediocre, insignificant things that impact the Ubuntu, it demonstrates their underdevelopment.
Yeah.
I can see the fact that they have yet to develop in a way that matters, because where they should be going is trying to master self so that they can be a better contributor to the body. Ubuntu. That's your only goal, is to be better than you were yesterday. No more than you did yesterday, so you can be a better person. Yes, this was my journey. This has been my journey since forever and a day. Being better than I was yesterday. Because this is what allows you to have the type of insight to be able to see the wisdom. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge applied is powerful. Don't just get information. Get wisdom and understanding and make some decisions. Because this is not, this conversation right here, African's greatest good, is fundamentally opposed to this matrix. It has to be vastly different in order for it to be equitable. Because people who are making $300,000, families that are making $300,000, it's not saying that families that have $5,000 and $600 a year or somehow they're different. They're still the same. They're the same people. They have different cultural experiences in the world. They've been presented with different situations in the world. But if all things created equal, I'm 100% certain that those $5,600 people right here through the roof, straight up out. I just gave you a long list of what Africans were creating 30 years outside of Reconstruction. Those things were happening in 18 such and such. There was one that was 1811. Reconstruction started in 1865 when allegedly the Africans were legally released from slavery, legally released from being owned by other people.
Until the 13th Amendment.
Okay, African?
And then criminalized.
Right, but the 13th Amendment was already there. Before 1865, the Constitution was 1776. The Constitution was already here. It had nothing to do with Africans. You were 3/5 the man that's written into the Constitution, which is still on books to this day. So we gotta be smart. We gotta really look at our African consciousness, and we gotta look at what we're doing for our exit strategy. Okay, because anything that can be done here on this continent in America, in the United States of America, has already been done for the African. Everything except for two things. But everything else, we've done it already. We tried it. So, I have an issue with the process of creating what's next for us. That's a process that we get to build it out. And we get to look at if we need time. We got to buy ourselves some time. So this Harris Biden ticket is going to buy us some time.
Right.
And during this window, we need to get on our grind and get into our civic duty. That means sharing information, educating yourself and sharing information. Because if you're going to stay here in this matrix until you get this exit strategy correct, exit strategy.
Focus on that.
Focusing on your exit strategy. Right. Africans are here wasting $1 trillion annually. And you are contributing to your own demise due to your ambivalence against having an African-centered consciousness, which is in fact for your greatest good and the greatest good of your future generation. If not, what they're going to inherit is not going to be the same thing you inherited. What we have inherited today is not the same our grandparents got. If we don't set our generations up, they're inheriting shit because we are now in the digital era. So what if your children are not on par for tech, programming, and because of our kids now, because of the way we've been feeding our children, because of the way we've been educating our children, most of our children they don't want to do anything that requires difficulty and challenge. And some of those things, because they were not enculturated from birth, it's difficult to them. They look at it as heavy, too hard, too difficult. So unless our children come into the world in the STEM, they come in from day one in the STEM. But even if our children come into the world in the STEM, did the parents come in the world into the STEM? Are you going to be able to keep your children engaged in STEM and make the accommodation? Because maybe you don't, but can you keep your children engaged in without pushing them into somebody else's hands? This is what we got to consider, family, when our build out and our strategy for success for our exit strategy. We need to buy ourselves some time. So let's dig into this and get on the phone and call your people. We got something in our community. We don't want to get in people's business. We don't want to ask people too much impersonal questions. But you'll sit there and talk about somebody like a dog to your peoples enough.
Okay, serving you nothing. Serving them nothing.
Serving you nothing, serving them nothing. Get on the phone and help your people. Get some understanding. Listen, family, I need you to fill out the census. You did your census?
Right.
Hey, family, listen. You checked in with your vote. Who you voting for? I'm voting for so and so and so, and this is why I'm voting for them.
October 31st, and it takes about 5 minutes. 2 to 5
less
minutes.
Than 5 minutes. If it's 2 people in your house, 3 people in your household,
do it at once.
you'll do it like
online.
in 2 minutes, family. If you can create an email address, you can fill out that form. If you can get on Google and build a Google address, it's just that easy. It's nothing difficult about it. You can do it online.
Absolutely. Go to my20census.gov. Fill out your census.
Let's do it, family.
Get counted. This is one thing we want to talk about, but we got into the voting stuff. But really, fill out your census, family. It's important. We for whatever reason, we were like, I can't be. I don't want them to find me. They found you if you have every bit of account and debit and whatever
You
you
filed
signed up
taxes,
for,
you got your tax
as long
check.
as you put in your social security number somewhere to file something,
They can
they'll
find
find you if they want you to.
If
They
you
want
have
to.
a cell
They
phone,
choose to.
the government has it
That's
so
it.
that it's set up.
They're all tapped. You think you're the only one who can find your phone?
It's set up. It's set up in the National Security and the Patriot Act. If they need to get a hold of you, they can go into your records.
Yeah, right then and there.
They can get to your. They can find you with your tracking. You got a cell phone. You got a watch. You got a digital watch.
Mm-hmm.
You have a debit card. Your debit card has a chip in it. They can find you, family.
That's why you'd be in better comfort to understand that this is what the system is. So
This is what it is.
So you can maneuver through
Please
it, right?
maneuver
Through it. Like you sound like sign, because you know what, they're gonna find you. So you might as well fill out your census. Why? Because when you get counted, that means there is now extra support that the necessary support to go to your community. Talking about social programs for your kids, for yourself. If there's kids in need, if the kids in need aren't counted, if you have kids, count them. Put them in the census.
Programs,
if
lunches. Yeah, I'm just adding on.
Okay. If you want, you make sure that people are counted, because if someone's isn't counted and there's only enough information, enough product or availability or programs allotted for X amount of people, and there's more than X amount of people because those extra more did not get counted, that's a problem. And I know that bit that's been allotted has now been diminished, and now people aren't getting their fair share.
That's right.
You can't sit here and say I need stuff for 40 people or 40 kids, and there's actually 60 kids, but those extra 20 didn't want to get counted. The parents didn't want to count them, and now you have to spread out something for 40 kids or 40 families or whatever the case may be, for 60 kids or 60 families. How does that work? So this is what you need to think about. Let go of whatever weirdo things you may have or anything you found on YouTube. So those conspiracy theory type things.
Folks. They don't know what they're talking about.
Do the census. That's for this. This isn't about a Trump and all that other stuff. This is about actually supporting your community and supporting the social growth and programs and necessary things that need to be counted and understood. Okay, how many people are here? All right, this is what we're going to get funding to. If you can't have how many people here and another whole set of people here, now they got to pinch off your stuff, and now you mad. Why? Because they didn't want to do what they need to do. You didn't want to be diligent about helping them do what they need to do. And now everyone is picking around scraps, and you have to wait another 10 years.
Make sure you call
every
them.
10 years.
Make sure you call them
to do it. Do your census.
Call your family.
Get your people together. Do your census. We doing here. We putting the word out to you here on Soundbytes. Don't forget about all those other things for the moment that you think, fight the man and whatever. This is really about the people in this current moment when it comes to the census. Get counted so your people could be supported. Period. Even what they said about the immigration status and if you like for illegal or not, it's not even about that. It's about making sure that people are counted so that they can get the help that they actually need.
Because you're here.
Pulling
so
scraps.
Folks try to front like they're not getting Section 8, like their kids not going pre-K.
Now why
their kids don't go to
pre-camp? Did you
and even if census? You're not, because a lot of folks that like to be acting shady. So maybe you got your come up. But you know what? You got people in your family members who may be using Section 8. You have people in your family, because African, listen, it is what it is. They said 3 out of 5, one African is going to have a police interaction before he's 21. 2 may even have done time in prison. So let's not front the game. We know what's going on out here. Do the census responsibly if it's not for yourself, but for the other individual. Because, y'all don't speak to your other family members. Because every time you talk to them, they're asking for something. You don't want to be bothered with them. I hear you. I can feel that.
Offer them to do the census.
But offer them to do the census.
Now, if they're running away, that's on them.
And tell them to do the census.
But
and you
back.
do the census. You do the census. I don't need some Section 8. I don't use, I got insurance from my job. Don't get too comfortable in the matrix. I promise you. Don't be comfortable in the matrix.
Go on an instant. The matrix
because
says so.
The matrix will boom. And as you can see, the number was 45 million unemployment cases hit the ranks while this COVID was going on.
In just a matter of months, weeks.
In a matter of months. And guess what? Some of those companies closed down entirely. So some of those jobs are not even coming back.
Listen,
so what is going to happen with those people who jobs are not ever coming back?
Listen, people, I work in food justice, so I've been seeing some crazy numbers. And 54 million people, because of this whole pandemic experience, because there was no proper plan, because people probably weren't counting whatever the case may be, 54 million people will go hungry this year because of COVID. A lot of people millions of people filling out unemployment for the first time, filling out for SNAP and governmental assistance for the first time ever. Is that we're in a new wave of social. There's a collapse that's taking place. So if people aren't properly supported, then the social landscape is going to be in ruins. That's why this stuff now more than ever is so important to do. It's not about you and your individualism. This is a collective effort now. This means put your bullshit aside and actually be a human to one another. Be a human to your fellow African. Be human to your fellow people and get this shit together. Do your census. Get counted in a way as possible.
Together. Come on, family.
Like cast your vote, not just for a Biden or a Trump. You're not think about it in terms of you're not just voting for these suckers. You voted for everybody else that comes along with the package deal. It's a package deal. You're not just voting for these two and that's it.
It's not just the presidency.
Deal. It's not just the presidency.
Judicial is all right? These judges.
We've had our battles with it. Look, I was going for the years. I was like, yo, I ain't voting no more. Fuck these folks. I'm sick of voting for this shit and feeling like it doesn't fucking matter. Right? The fact that all these people with that Hillary went by a landslide and this guy still won the next day. I wanted to sleep comfortable and woke up to this crazy shit. And like many of us.
He's making it.
So it's felt like a joke, family. We know, trust and believe, but that doesn't change the fact that there's still a whole system. And because we've been so indoctrinated to believe these two puppets moving around are who we need to worry about, that they've led us astray in believing that there's actual other facets of this system that actually get to work in our favor if we pay attention to it. Them other names you just bypass, just check down the line, whatever. Yeah, but you might check the Democrat down the line. That may be well and good for you, but also maybe some Democrats that may have some fucked up policies on there. There may be some Republicans that might have some certain type of policy, and you may be able to cross go on those lines. But you have to pay attention and know what's going on. So it's very much as important that we actually know what's happening, who's in the space, who's doing what. That's not the president. Forget that sucker because he just signed shit and that's it. Whatever. He doesn't even know what he's doing. If he's asleep, sign this. Yeah, sure. It'll give me points. They don't care. The actual people they're not the people we're voting for. We're voting for the other people that's behind the gate, that's behind the curtain. We're voting for Oz. We're voting for actual Oz out here, not the president. So be clear on that, family. So keep that in mind, right? These are coming to Jesus moments. Like we've had it, like I've had it. You know what I mean? I'm like, all right, well, whatever. I get it. There's a bigger thing in mind that you have to keep me mindful of. So let's keep those things in mind. Get out of our pride, get out of our hubris, get into strategic maneuver, and focus on the next steps. This next steps after the next steps. This is chess. If you're not playing a game, if you're just stopping at the door, then you're not going to win. You're not going to win. You don't win Monopoly by taking the game out of the box. You got to play it. So like you got to get into it, family. And that's just that in particular is what it is. You're in the Matrix. Play the game in the Matrix, but play it to win. But trust and believe. Don't play it to win for you. Don't expect them to try to be like, we're going to support you destroying. But play it to win for you until you get your exit strategy, like Neff said.
You got tons of things that are coming along. You got federal court. You got Supreme Court. You got the United District Court. You got a federal judicial court. You got the Federal Court of Appeals. You got the United States Court of Appeals. All these things are attached to that presidential seat.
These psychos.
And you want to know this is how the consciousness of inequity perpetuated, because it's nature. It's not nature. It's nurture. This behavior is passed down. So if you have people with this consciousness in these seats, they're not going to be making decisions that are in the best interest of the African. So you want to make sure that you line yourself up with your strategy to buy yourself some time and go into action and make other priorities in your life. And you know what? Cut the excess.
Yeah.
COVID taught us something. Not us personally, but in the social landscape.
Right, we was good.
You can trim the excess. You can do without certain things in your life. They're good for your spirit. They're good for your energy. And they're good for time for you to be with yourself. Family, peace and blessings.
Yeah,
listen,
lastly,
gravy.
And last thing I'll say
it's
about
all good. It's not a beat up. It's always a build out.
Right. Last thing I'll say about it is like, family, we understand that, like we said, we did mention that there's other parties, but don't shoot yourself in the foot now and try to vote for them. It's too little too late right now because ain't no way magically the Green Party is going to win the presidency. No. Forget that idea. Do it. Let's do it. And we people are like, oh, well, we just vote for. Nah, if you don't like the way this is going, then vote. Do the necessary vote. Right, that we're suggesting, right? But don't vote for anybody else because you're throwing away a vote, right? What you need to do though, make this vote, but do what you need to do afterwards, right? If you feel like you want to switch parties, whatever, do what you do your diligence, do your homework, do your research, and do what you need to do for the next 4 years, and put in a strategic motion to push those people to the forefront. We should not only be dealing with a two-party system. We should not. We should have options on the table that are leveled out considerably.
That's right.
The next election we should have then, and with all we become clear with, it should be leveled out considerably. It should be 3, it should be 5, it should be all 9. Who cares? Like more.
Yeah, but you know something?
We need choice. There's no choice in just having two people.
Places who are invested in this two-party system.
Change it.
Remember, you have these people are in bed with these corporations.
I can't do it. Change it.
You have individuals that work for the corporation and they go turn around and they work in government, right? And then they're also invested in these things because you know something, that conflict of interest stuff only applies to us. It don't apply to them. They write the laws how they choose to write the laws. And they also know how to skirt certain things. I'm just saying, family. Yeah. So we need a viable strategy, and transparency is going to be our best friend.
Absolutely.
Transparency is going to be our best friend.
Yeah.
Call them folks up and tell them why you're voting for Biden and Harris. Why you're doing it. Because the videos went out there with Biden talking crazy off the side of his neck, like he out of his damn mind. He needed, somebody to bop him upside the head. What you talking about? Right? You're going to sit up here. So what are you talking about you're going to do with these kids? What are you talking about? Because what he was saying was technically like, we're going to drop them in a black hole. We can't do nothing with them. They can't be rehabilitated. We got to get rid of them.
And people
get rid of them what? Put them in jail?
And
kill them? Because that's the only possibility of getting rid of them or not deal with them. That's the only thing that's available. But we don't have to get into that.
Right.
Because we have to drill down on what our strategy is. We need to buy ourselves some time. Because we know if this crazy guy gets over here who, he needs a psychological, diagnosis. I don't understand how he became president. I don't understand how, but you know how he became president? Because people who are making $300,000 annually, $500,000 annually, who have $1 million worth of assets. Anybody moved into Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, those houses are now worth $1.234 million now. Family. So it's a mechanism that's at play. So once you have $1 million worth of assets, your net worth goes up. And your concerns are very different. You're concerned with different things. So African, since we're not in that bracket, as a collective, as equity, as collective, right? Because we got brown folks running around and talking about they Republican. I don't know what the hell is wrong with them. They look like they're crazy to me. Like aliens. I'm like, what? But then they say, oh, well, Democrats, what have the Democrats done for you lately? Well, you know what? What have anybody done for the African lately?
Are you reading between the lines? Trump
because ain't done nothing for the Africans, period.
Trump also said he lowered unemployment rate. Yeah, people are working, but it's people that are working that are still hungry. There's families and single mothers with 5 kids that have to work retail because that's all they can get. But they're working, but they're not living. Living wages. You can let these people beat you over the head all they want to with their fake-ass fugazi narratives, or you can actually read between the lines and critically think, which we think is highly lacking in today's society. We've been dumbed down considerably. We don't even think beyond the top surface stuff. Trump says a lot of things, and he also reneges on a lot of things he said without remorse. He reneges on, I didn't say that. He literally said it 10 minutes ago. So if you want to go ahead and believe that African and not read between the lines, oh, Trump sounded real nice. Yeah, everything sounded real nice. Slave masters sounded nice too.
They did.
Don't be fooled. Don't be aloof. Critically think. None of these suckers out here for you. But you do your due diligence and stick with the strategy and stick on code with your people to get us closer and closer to the liberation that we need, because it ain't here. It ain't here. Be clear, it ain't here. But do what you need to do here to pack your bags and let's get going. Whether it's Africa or whatever you want to create a new damn country, I don't care.
I mean African because you gotta do your due diligence. We gotta do our due diligence.
Do the work.
We're gonna get in the grind. We're gonna make sure we
stop waiting for somebody. Do the work.
We're gonna master self. You're gonna be the leader. I mean, be the leader doesn't mean go out there and start doing stuff, saying stuff.
Yeah, don't mean just
that doesn't mean be the leader
for no reason.
By virtue, and what was interesting to me is our mayor said today. He said, by virtue of modeling behavior, because I talk about that all the time. Bandora's modeling behavioral theory. By virtue of you living your life as a model for someone else to do the right thing with their lives. We are clear distinctions of that. We live this life. Yeah. And it's our life, like our real life, like where we live every day. But by virtue of dealing and doing the right thing and living in a Ma'atian framework and what is good for the African, right, and in balance with the divine, it is a model for the outside. It is what it is, family. Master
Yeah.
self, get this window right here so we can buy ourselves some time for the collective, because we are vulnerable. We need to tighten up and get out here and do this vote. And listen, be real careful with your vote. Be careful with your vote, because you want to do the work and make sure you count it. Make sure you're counted. Get into that census, get on that phone and start calling folks up and start having your meetings. Everybody got a meeting, a Zoom call for any and everything now. Have a Zoom call about the census. Like, you literally can have a Zoom call right now about exactly what we talked about tonight, where you can share information that is actually viable, not wasting time talking foolishness about who sleeping with who and WAP and all of that.
How can I get a better mate?
We really need to do more. We need to really change our quality of what we give our energy to, family, because that's also another reason why it is cutting. There we go. I think we're gonna do that. We're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about that, family, because that's actually cutting across the reason why we have difficulty processing in other areas, because we got other things taking up too much of our mind space and energy space.
Focus up.
Focus up, family.
So best of belief, family. We appreciate y'all. We appreciate Brother Frank, Sister Share, for coming through, sharing their thoughts and their on what's been going on. We know y'all out there with these thoughts. Don't be quiet around this conversation, but we know we here. We gonna talk about it. So
talk about it.
We see.
We love you, Africans. So we gonna tell you the truth.
We see y'all, and even we don't see y'all. We see y'all. So, but
we see y'all, even though we don't see y'all. Okay, 300 views on this video, and then right here, nobody's saying nothing. Y'all gotta speak up. Like, I don't know what's up. You in the safe space, so it's not a safe space. It was online. You know, can't be saying too much online. Listen, African, the fact that you have to contemplate whether or not you can say what's in your best interest, you're still a prisoner, babe. I hate to tell you, you're still a prisoner. Basically, get free, African.
And if you want to, then message us.
Get free.
We can do anonymous share of what's
African. Get free.
But your voice needs to be out there. You know, we like, trust and believe, like we say here at Soundbytes, we're not here to talk at our family. We're here to talk with our family.
Talk with you, family.
This is a fireside chat. This ain't a podium. This ain't a podium.
All right,
TED Talk.
Let's do it.
You know, we here with y'all. So remember, follow us on Instagram.
Ain't no big guys and little U's here.
No big guys and little U's.
We are still coming through the journey.
Follow us on Instagram, Soundbytes International Radio.
Give thanks.
Soundbytes International Radio on Instagram. Please follow us on there. Tell your friends to follow us. There's content there you can look at. You can look at that too if you don't want to say nothing. You can look at it and you can smile and whatever, pin it out, put it on your on your refrigerator. But we here, we're gonna share the message with you regardless.
That's right, family.
If you're here watching us on our Facebook, then of course you know we're here on Facebook, Soundbytes INTL Radio on Facebook. You can also subscribe on our YouTube, which is also where we are live right now. YouTube is Soundbytes International Radio. So please subscribe. We want to get over. We're still fresh on our YouTube, so we want to get over 100 followers so you can make a real URL and really customize it. So let's make this experience real. So subscribe to our YouTube channel, share with your people, subscribe as well. Tell your people to subscribe. Also follow us on Soundbytes International Radio on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Make sure you go on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Soundbytes International Radio. Leave your reviews. Give us some 5 stars if you find value in the conversation, and leave actual written reviews. They trust and believe your feedback is greatly supported and appreciated and encouraged. So remember to do that. Follow us on Twitter. We're also live there via Periscope, Soundbytes INTL on Twitter. So make sure you follow that. And make sure, of course, visit our This Is Soundbytes.com website. This is Soundbytes with a Y website, where you can also hit that follow on the Apple Podcast and the Spotify. You can get our merch, get some cool hoodies, get yourself ready for the fall. Fortify with the family. Represent the Soundbite set, and also you can contribute via our contribute button on our website, or our Cash App with the $sign Soundbytes Radio as an energy yield if you find value in these conversations and want to support the continued growth of Soundbytes International. Coming up in the Newark area.
We're going to go ahead and do some more housekeeping.
So Newark area, this week is the Newark Arts Festival. The Newark is for artists. Trust and believe, family. It's an artistic city. Trust and believe. The Newark Arts Festival, the annual Newark Art Festival, is taking place this weekend, October 8th through the 11th. And we will be hosting our own special session called the Source Sessions at the only Black-owned bookstore in Newark, Source of Knowledge. Shout out to our Source of Knowledge family called the Source Sessions. So we do, Nephron and I will be sharing some pieces and also wants to engage the people with what's going on at Source of Knowledge, and where you can find it, and what the history and the arts and everything that's there available, and share our newest pieces with you in that space, live stream on our Facebook, and via Newark Arts Festival on their website. So again, check with us, Newark Arts Festival, this Sunday on the October 11th at, what do we say, 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We said 3 o'clock, right? I think so. So 3 p.m. We'll also share the link on our Soundbytes. So make sure you tune in for that. Or if you're in Newark, want to stop by, look through the window, because we want to socially distance, be responsible. Come through, get some books, because the Source of Knowledge has some incredible books, incredible knowledge to apply somewhere and get some power in your life.
Boom.
Source of Knowledge bookstore. So that is coming up this Sunday, October 11th, Newark Arts Festival. These our Source Sessions, our Source of Knowledge. We're sharing poetry and music and so much more, storytelling at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please join us for that. Again, our African business series is Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Varying Wednesdays at 9 p.m. So we have some more information on guests coming up soon. Stay tuned for that. And of course, join us here at Soundbytes International Radio, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday nights, live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter via Periscope. So you can watch.
And this weekend we just passed by was my 1-day anniversary.
So 1-day anniversary for Nephara, and she has we just launched her new EP, her debut soundboard.
Boom.
A Queen Deferred Volume 3. Feel Me is the name of that EP. Queen Deferred No More. Trust and believe in that. Is available now. It is available on Keys to Soar, KEYS number 2 SOAR.com/FeelMeEP altogether. You can download it there, support directly with the financials, because financials moves in this capital society. So go visit there, download it there, and really consume the content, right? I produced the content, but of course she wrote it. It's excerpts from her poetry book, her upcoming poetry book, A Queen Deferred Volume 3. A Poetic Journey, the physical book. So it will be available soon. But this is an EP with 6 exclusive cuts. Well, not exclusive, but 6 cuts of poems from the actual book. So to give you a visual, give you the storytelling to go along with the book. You can hear it, you can consume it, meditate to it, let it permeate through your household while you play it. Despite being a creator of it. Just to listen to it back and play it and just be immersed in it is really truly a meditative state. So we encourage you to listen to it as well, and share share, because she's awesome, and share with your people. Share your thoughts. There's a comment section on the web, on that page on keysasword.com/feelmeep. Please leave your thoughts and comments around the EP and reflections. And it's also, if you want to stream as well, streams help too. It is available now on Apple Music and iTunes. So you can support that way as well. But we encourage you to go to the website, because that's where direct, happenings take place. Ashe. I'm on Snapchat. So that's the housekeeping of it. We're gonna head up out of here. We want to go into some reflective vibes around tonight. And hit y'all with a little bit of some spoken word and hip hop and soul vibes. So this is a piece called Be Alright 2.0 from one of my last projects called Revolution Legacy Volume 1 Revolution. So I just want y'all to feel this, and as we close out, stay with us, vibe to the tunes. Let's reflect. Let's be in the journey together, family. This is Soundbytes. It's National Radio. Black consciousness is the claim.
One world is the aim.
Absolutely, all day, every day. So sit tight, family. One love.
Peace, power, blessing.
Absolutely.
Here we go. This track is this is Be Alright 2.0.
Definitely just said it.
My brain was looking at my bacha leaving them out. It's a lesson. Hey.
Under the light of the moonrise, I find solace in the glow. Trying my best not to be consumed with what the night brings. All the heartbreak, scars, looming bouts of depression, brought on by massive pressure, rising aggression. These various backgrounds are thrown for loops, and fallen victim to vocal suppression.
Out here.
No longer remain tame, dipping, diving in and out of consciousness amidst the crazy world, fast asleep. 3 a.m. Your life moves like rush hour, and you're left praying it doesn't escape you.
I'm just wasting time, trying not to lose my mind. So we fight to survive. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright.
Lost in the fray. My dreams ain't what I thought, fill my mind with slates. A stranger in the land where my hand was heavy. Now my heart weighs even more. This is a time of need. Signs ain't enough. Feels like rhymes ain't enough. Trying not to succumb to the pressure is guarding those needs. No one feels safe. Aim is to create with good faith. Drill down the will of the masses, make America great. There's no walls here, just big voices and balls here. Growing African minded, we will not be divided. From Mexican to Yemenis, many standing behind us. Muslim, Buddhists, and Baptists to divide we will guide us. So my Latinos and Latinas, you're my brothers, my sisters, my people. So lo quiero, difundí el amor, Latino, black, brown, and Asian, unite the nation. All hands in the middle, let's demolish the hatred.
Yeah, I'm just wasting time, trying not to lose my mind. So we fight to survive. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright.
We stand to love much more than we are right now. Love ourselves. It's self-love that properly ignites the love of others. Once we get clear, we can see ourselves and others. God in me sees and respects the God in you. We really are all the same, though we may look different.
Ubuntu.
We share experiences, thoughts, emotions across the diaspora, across humanity. The human in me sees the human in you. See, freedom starts in the mind, the heart, tangible, working for something tangible. And it is there if we choose to see. We're so long programmed to be in need or think we are in need, but in actuality, we are all in need. What the world's been waiting for. Let's believe, my friends, you are the volume mate. I should.
I'm just wasting time, trying not to lose my mind. So we fight to survive. We gon' be alright. We gon' be alright.
Yeah. Soundbytes International, y'all. That conscious claim on world is aim. Join us next week. Soundbytes, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. One love.
Keep it tight.